Do you want to count down or? The Anarchs are another sect that, up until recently, weren't seen as a sect. Due to their original smaller size and tendency to exist in Camarilla-run cities, they were seen as a faction within the Camarilla. They are rebels, and young vampires with a tendency to fight power, and of course, the elder vampires of the Camarilla who see them as only lonely peons. This eventually led to the first Anarch Revolt, where Anarchs were sick of the elders throwing new vampires into the clutches of the Human Inquisition. While the Camarilla wanted to hide and create the masquerade, the Anarchs wanted action. This eventually led them to overtaking the Camarilla in the region and starting many conflicts in Europe until the Convention of Thorns. The first Anarch Revolt was started in the 15th century by the Anarch neonate Tyler of Clan Bruja. He allied his march for freedom with many successes with Clan Lasombra and Clan Zamishi. The revolt resulted in the next topic of discussion, the Convention of Thorns. In 1493, the Convention of Thorns cemented the founding of the Camarilla and the Anarch sects to have a joint relationship in maintaining and upholding the masquerade. It worked for over 500 years, and it would eventually be destroyed in 2012 when the Anarch Theobald would kill Hardestat the Younger, child of Hardestat. His progenitor was one of the original founders of the Camarilla. The death of Hardestat the Younger reinforced a century-long hatred between Clan Bruja and Clan Ventru. As in 1395, the original Hardestat had been diablerized by Tyler, who had sparked the flames of revolution in the first Anarch Revolt. During the Convention of Thorns, despite the Anarchs often boasting they were free from Camarilla authority, however, according to the Convention of Thorns, these Anarchs were recognized as under Camarilla authority and under Camarilla control with lesser power and lesser status than official members of the Camarilla. It was common practice for the Camarilla to treat most Anarchs as nothing more than foot soldiers and their goals, just as they did centuries before. But now, with the rising threat of humanity's dominance and control, humanity's power far exceeds what is held by vampires. Those who opposed the Convention of Thorns would later go on to form the Sabbat, a group of kindred with a zealous lust to destroy their antediluvian progenitors. They opposed the masquerade and believed that kindred should not have to hide their true nature. In the modern nights, the Sabbat have been very few in number, as most have left the Middle East to the call of the beckoning. Some kindred scholars call this one of the signs of Gehenna, the end times. This broadcast today is brought to you by the Anarch Movement. Tired of getting crushed under the old heads of the Camarilla or by Sabbat running rampant in your neck of the woods? Then join the Anarchs, man. We offer equality and safety for all in our ranks. No longer we have to bow to the princes of a domain or be beholden to the Camarilla and their outdated belief system. Come to beautiful California and join the Anarch Movement today and finally be free. The Second Anarch Revolt. The Anarchs remained as a faction within the Camarilla up until 1944, when another Anarch revolt in California would take the head of the Prince of Los Angeles, leading to a series of uprisings that would take most of California, leading to the Anarch Free State of California. It would be governed by the Status Perfectus, the rules of the Anarch Free State. Below is an excerpt from that document. Rule 1. We declare ourselves to be free and independent, owing allegiance to no creature, no organization. Rule 2. We declare our ability to rule ourselves with no prince, no primogen, and no other ruler than what that we choose for ourselves. Rule number 3, we declare our kinship with oppressed kindred everywhere and offer home to all kindred of all generations and clans who agree to dwell in harmony with us. Rule 4, we further accept our responsibility to our oppressed brothers and sisters everywhere and pledge to assist them at all times and in all places in their own struggle for freedom that we declare to be the birthright of all kindred from now until the end of time. Rule 5, we recognize our responsibility to maintain the masquerade and we pledge to protect and defend it. In Rule 6, we establish the status perfectus and recognize its duty to all kindred. To better understand the Anarch point of view, we secured an exclusive interview with an Anarch on their point of view. So what does being an Anarch mean to you?
To me?
Yes.
That means I can go on my phone and whenever I like and make calls and enjoy the technology of today. It means I don't have to send snail mail. It means I don't have to answer to some foppish guy in a wig. I want to go down to the local blood bank for a bite. Being an Anarch is very important to me.
Do you have an issue with the Camarilla or the Sabbat?
Wow. Talk about no one to root for in that one, am I right? Well, the Sabbat are just wrong. I admire their pluck, but nah, they're not about safety. The Camarilla, though, They've been wrong for thousands of years, getting wronger and wronger, which they'd know if they were even capable of watching this, which they aren't.
What finally made you decide to become an anarch?
Freedom, free will, except for the whole sun thing, but freedom of choice to live my death the way I choose.
Would you ever consider the Camarilla to be a power or no?
I mean, yeah, I would consider it to be a power, like something to avoid, something to have to live with, something to have to endure. Like a warm, sweaty monsoon. That's the Camarilla to me. Kind of smells afterward.
Anarchs still want to fight power and want to overthrow the Camarilla. Rarely do cities still include anarchs in their course and treat them as still a faction. Most of the time they are at war, but will work together with the Camarilla against threats like the Sabbat. Anarchs are also using technology more in their sect, something not allowed in the Camarilla. Things like the internet and cell phones, code words are used to not tip off human hunters who have evolved past pitchforks and fire to modern military equipment. Anarchs are also more modern kindred. They openly welcome the use of modern technology as opposed to the Camarilla's more stringent restrictions on tech. Clans like the Brujah, Gangrel, and Kadif, the clanless, dominate the sect, while new generations of vampires, including Thinbloods, flock to join their ranks. Anarch positions and roles. Baron, the equivalent of a prince of a Camarilla city. The Chameleon, inspired one of the other sects. Reeve, the law in an anarch city, can be an individual or those in a coterie. Emissary, a diplomatic representative of the anarchs in an area. Sweeper, an observer, tries to find out the kindred in a domain and what they are good at. In conclusion, the anarchs are one of the freer sects in vampire society in the world of darkness, and have a long and very storied history. It is interesting to see how this sect will change and adapt in the modern world and modern nights.
Hello, and welcome to Frame by Frame, the show where we take a closer look at the art, animation, and storytelling that makes anime so unique. I'm Lee, and in this series, each episode will focus on a different anime, exploring what makes it stand out visually, emotionally, and creatively. Some episodes will break down fight scene, others will focus on character design or story structure, but every episode is about understanding how anime works, thus the name Frame by Frame. Today we're starting with Demon Slayer, a series that gained worldwide attention for its breathtaking animation and cinematic style. Even if you've never watched the show, you may have seen some clips online. The fast-paced fight sequence, bright colors, and a smooth movement that almost makes it feel like it belonged in a blockbuster movie rather than a TV series. To start with, we prepared a short intro video. Let's take a look. Demon Slayer quickly becomes one of the most visually recognizable anime of the last decades. Even people who don't normally watch anime often stop and pay attention when its scene appears online. What makes the series stand out isn't just its intense action or dramatic storytelling. It's the way movement, color, and sound works together to create moments that feel powerful, emotional, and cinematic. From quiet character moments to explosive battles, Every scene is designed to guide the viewer's attentions and shape how each moment is felt. The visuals don't simply show the story, they help tell it. This attention to detail creates an experience that feels closer to feature films than a traditional television series, pulling viewers deeper into the world and the emotion of each scene. Because of this, Demon Slayer has become a global phenomenon, inspiring fan art, cosplay, social media discussion, and rising expectation for what modern anime can look like. Its unique visual identity has helped redefine how audiences view animated storytelling, proving that animation can just be as immersive and emotionally powerful as live action film. But what exactly makes these visual works so well? What creative decisions shape the movements, the color, and the cinematic feeling behind each scene? Let's break it down, frame by frame. Now that we've seen the intro video, let's break down exactly why Demon Slayer looks so good. One of the biggest factors is the animation techniques. Many anime series use limited animation to save time and budget, which means fewer frames and less movement. However, Demon Slayer focused on a smooth, fluid motion, especially during their action sequence. Demon Slayer is made from the studio called Ufotable, and they use what's called a hybrid animation, a mix of traditional 2D animation and 3D digital environment. This creates an illusion of a moving camera, almost like watching a live-action film. Camera movement is carefully planned during pre-production. Storyboards and animatics used to map out every scene, ensuring that each shot flows naturally and keeps the audience oriented during complex fight scenes. Consistency is also key. Even during fast-paced action, characters remain on model and maintain their proportion. Every movement feels intentional, which contributes to the polished cinematic look of the show. This is one of the reasons why Demon Slayer has received critical acclaim and has inspired other studios to experiment with similar techniques. It's not about making something look pretty, it's about creating a viewing experience that's immersive, exciting, and emotionally engaging. This episode of Frame by Frame is brought to you by Crunchyroll, the world's leading anime streaming service. Watch thousands of episodes from your favorite anime series, including the latest hits and classic favorites, all in one piece. Don't miss a single moment. Level up your anime experience with Crunchyroll. Now that we've covered animation, camera work, let's talk about the color and music. Demon Slayer used bold color palettes to make every character and breathing style instantly recognizable, like their bright blues for water breathing techniques and their bright red for flame techniques. These colors help viewers follow fast fight scenes and also sets the mood, from tense and dramatic to high energy action. The music works the same way. Fast, intense tracks drive the action, while quieter moments let the emotions sink in. When you put it all together, animation, color, and music, you get a cinematic experience that really pulls you in, and that's what makes Demon Slayer stands out. In future episodes of Frame by Frame, we'll break down other animes like Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, and One Piece to see how they do things differently. So to sum it up, Demon Slayer stands out because everything works together. Animation, camera movements, color, and music to create an experience that feels cinematic and immersive, not just animated. It's not only the story that pulls people in, but the way it's presented. And that's what Frame by Frame is all about. Each episode, we break down a different anime to explore the animation techniques, storytelling, and a creative choice behind what you're watching. That's going to wrap up this episode of Frame by Frame. Thank you for joining me as we explore what makes Demon Slayer so visually impactful. I hope this breakdown gives you a new appreciation in how anime use visual design and music to enhance emotion. Be sure to tune in for future episodes where we'll dive into a new anime each time. I'm Lee, and I'll see you next time on Frame by Frame.
Welcome to Composer Spotlight. In this segment, I talk about composers from the Romantic era. As a quick reminder, the Romantic era spans from about 1820 to the early 1900s, so sandwiched between the classical and modern eras. The composer of today is Frédéric Chopin. Frédéric Chopin was born on March 1st, 1810, to Nicholas and Justina. Nicholas was a Frenchman who immigrated to Poland at 16, where he met Justina, and they had 4 children together. Frédéric had 3 sisters, 1 older, Ludwika, and 2 younger, Isabella and Amelia. Chopin was small and prone to sickness from an early age, and that continued throughout the rest of his life, and he suffered from many different sicknesses. His father taught French at the Warsaw Lyceum and in the Saxon Palace. They lived on the palace grounds in his childhood. His father played flute and violin, and his mother played piano and taught lessons. Frédéric showed interest in music at a very young age and tried to copy the music he heard and improvised his own harmonies and melodies. He had his first lessons at 7, and his sister also took lessons with him. She sometimes played duets with him, but it was pretty clear from the get-go that he was a child prodigy. He started performing at a young age, with his first public performance being at 8 years old. He did not like performing publicly, but that was how he gained popularity at the beginning. He preferred smaller gatherings like friends or performing for just a small gathering. His teacher was inclined to the Romantic era, but insisted on traditional training as well, which was clear throughout his pieces. He showed interest in Polish folk songs young and was influenced by them in his work. Frédéric attended the Warsaw Lyceum between the ages of 13 and 16. He excelled and progressed very quickly. After that, his family enrolled him in the Warsaw Conservatory of Music when he was 16, now called the Frédéric Chopin University of Music. He learned important compositional harmonies and structure, but was also given freedom to develop his own style there. After this, for wider musical experience, he traveled to Vienna to perform for the first time abroad and was received with critical acclaim. His second performance there solidified his success, and he returned home to compose more, writing etudes, concertos, and other piano and orchestral works. He later intended to visit Italy and Germany for further study, but only got as far as Vienna. European unrest caused him to stay there profitless for a whole year before eventually making his way to Paris. There, at the center of European culture, he found that the Romantic style that was emerging was one in which his genius could fully flourish. He established relationships there with other composers such as Liszt, Mendelssohn, Bellini, and Berlioz. Frédéric settled into life in Paris and began teaching and composing. He was able to live off that, so he didn't have to perform concerts, which he famously hated. He wasn't everyone's taste, as he had a specific sensitivity on the piano, so big crowds didn't always enjoy him, but the Rothschild family opened up new opportunities for him to perform in the great houses of Paris and continue teaching through their connections. His first surviving composition is a Polonaise in G minor, which he composed at only 7 years old. He continued composing all his life, but his health hindered his composition abilities from time to time. Some of his greatest and most popular works were Ballad in G minor, the Etudes in E flat major and C sharp minor, and the Revolutionary Etude. He was very political and loyal to Poland and composed pieces celebrating or lamenting the good and bad times in his country. Another one of his works, one of my personal favorites, is Fantasy Impromptu. here is me playing this very difficult but beautiful masterpiece. Today's segment is sponsored by Hopeful Harvest, your local landscaping and house cleaning service, providing quality yard management, flower bed design, and cleaning services. Also providing quality fruit tree pruning with over 10 years of experience. Later in life, Frédéric Chopin was in a long-term relationship with a novelist, and in spending summers with her, his productivity in composing excelled. These are said to be the happiest times in his life. They separated close to the end of his life, and having already been suffering from symptoms of tuberculosis and depressed by the revolution in Paris, his health rapidly declined. He went to England and Scotland to perform and teach for a short period during this time. His health was so poor that he could hardly maintain the pace there, and he was so sick that he was unable to compose. In his final performance, he played for the benefit of Polish refugees in London. He returned to Paris a year later in 1849. His body is buried in Paris, but his heart is buried in Warsaw at the Church of the Holy Cross. Chopin appeared only a few more than 30 times, but had a reputation of the highest order despite his few performances throughout his short life. His use of pedals, innovation of fingerings, and overall treatment of the piano showed a level of understanding on the piano that few could attain. His style, harmony, and form was extremely innovative and poetic, with a Romantic era essence while maintaining the classical era purity. He was truly one of the greatest pianists who ever lived. Chopin rubbed shoulders with other greats, as I mentioned before, one of them being Franz Liszt, who we will talk about next time. Thanks for watching. Now go listen to some Chopin. I'll see you later for the next Composer Spotlight. Happy Monday.
Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Animated Meals. I'm your host, Anne-Marie, and Lily and I are going to be recreating some of Tiana's famous beignets from Princess and the Frog. The star of the beignets is the dough itself. Without the dough, there really wouldn't be a dish. So, with that being said, that's where we're going to start off today, the dough. To start your dough, you're going to need sugar, all-purpose flour, a milk of your choice, preferably whole milk or 2%, 1 egg at room temperature, and 1 packet of yeast, unsalted butter, and salt. For this recipe, we will be using 2% milk, After adding your warm milk into a bowl, you can add your packet of yeast, one 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 room temperature egg. After a quick stir, you can add 3 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter, and then you will add 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now for your flour. You'll need 2 cups plus 1/3 cup of flour and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. You'll need to mix until your dough is formed. After your dough is formed, you'll put some flour on your table. You can take out your dough and start kneading for 5 to 6 minutes. After kneading your dough for 5 to 6 minutes, put your dough in an oiled bowl and cover and let rise for an hour in room temperature. You'll want to wait about an hour for your dough to rise in room temperature. So while we wait for the dough to rise, I'll take the time to thank our sponsors for today's episode. I want to say thank you to Eres Tu Jewelry for sponsoring today's episode. Eres Tu Jewelry creates jewelry from popular movies and animated movies. If you're interested in buying some of their pieces, check out their Instagram page or their Etsy shop. That's linked in their Instagram page. Now that the dough has had time to rise, you can begin to prep the dough to be fried. After an hour of your dough rising, you can take out your dough, give it a good little punch, then start to roll out your dough. You'll want your dough to be a little less than an inch thick. And then cut into squares. Make sure you have a deep pot or pan before frying your dough. You'll want to drop a small piece of dough into the oil to test whether the oil is too hot or just right. When you start to fry the dough, try not to overcrowd the pan or pot. This allows the beignets to fry evenly. You'll flip the beignets once you see a golden brown on one side. You want to try not to over fry your beignets. They fry pretty quickly once the oil is hot. Today, beignets are a staple of New Orleans, but let's talk about how they got there. You see, in the 17th century, the French settlers French settlers settled in Canada in a region called Acadia. But when the British took over control of this region a century later, Acadians were forced to migrate, many settling in New Orleans, Louisiana, bringing their cuisine and their language with them, beignets being one of them. The Acadian descendants are now known as today as Cajuns. Once your beignets are fried to a golden brown, you can start to assemble the beignets by adding honey and powdered sugar on top.
Avec un seul mot, le ciel commence à dégager. Avec un seul mot, disparaîtront les nuées. La lumière toujours me perce. Avec un mot simple, doux. Avec un seul bruit qui fait chanter la matinée, la plus douce mélodie au fond des raisonnées, sans commencer la magie de votre...
Well, folks, we have come to the end of today's show. Thank you for bearing with me for this stumbly show. But even with the stumbles and the stutters, I hope you enjoyed today's episode and are interested in cooking beignets for yourself. 10 out of 10, very delicious. Thank you for watching, and I hope I see you next Monday.